The Ryder Cup was supposed to be about golf, but Bryson DeChambeau just turned it into reality TV. After his caddy clashed with Justin Rose on the 15th hole, tempers exploded. Players, caddies, even vice-captains piling into the feud. Bryson fired back with a pointed shot at their respect. Was it passion or pettiness? Stick around. This rivalry is only getting uglier.
Bryson's having to try and get a little go here.
It all started with one step, literally. Greg Bodine, Bryson DeChambeau's loyal caddy, accidentally walked into Justin Rose's putting line on the 15th hole. In golf terms, that's sacrilege. Rose immediately called him out, though by his own admission, maybe not as politely as I could have done. Translation: Rose snapped. Bryson, who has never been one to keep quiet, jumped to his caddy's defense and fired back at Rose as they walked off the green. That's when things went from tense to toxic. Tommy Fleetwood decided he wasn't going to let his teammate handle this solo, inserting himself right into Bryson's face. Meanwhile, on the American side, Scottie Scheffler's caddy Ted Scott took exception to Francesco Molinari, who was shadowing the match as a European vice-captain. Suddenly, we weren't watching golf anymore. We were watching an episode of Real Housewives of the Fairway. Every step toward the 16th tee box felt less like a walk and more like a confrontation in a boxing ring. And the real kicker? None of this had anything to do with strokes, strategy, or scorecards. It was all about respect, or, depending on whose side you're on, the lack of it. By the time they reached the 16th, the atmosphere was less Ryder Cup and more bar fight with golf clubs. Rose had made his point, Fleetwood had delivered his backup vocals, and Bryson? He was fuming. Witnesses said you could see the steam coming off his visor as he barked back at the Europeans. For a moment, it looked like the sport famous for its gentleman's etiquette was about to give us a live brawl. Scheffler tried to stay cool, but even he couldn't completely tune out the drama brewing around his partner. And as for Molinari, he wasn't just standing by, he was in the mix, jawing right back at Ted Scott. The fans could sense it. Every mutter, every glare, every aggressive adjustment of a golf glove was amplified by the crowd. By the time Rose and Fleetwood clinched the match on the 16th hole, the handshake line looked like the most awkward exchange since the Oscars slap. Rose later downplayed it, saying he apologized if he came off harsh and insisted there was no malintent. But Bryson wasn't ready to let it slide. The fury wasn't about etiquette anymore. It was about pride, territory, and sending a message across enemy lines. Whose side are you on? Bryson defending his caddy or Rose holding the line? Drop your pick in the comments, because this Ryder Cup fight feels bigger than the scoreboard.
Bowen and Scheffler, and certainly giving a boost to the rest of the players.
Rose is away.
Justin Rose just telling the caddy of Bryson DeChambeau, Greg Bodine, to get out of his way as he was.
And let's not forget the other player in this saga, the crowd. Farmingdale, New York, is notorious for its brutal golf audiences, and this Ryder Cup was no exception. US fans heckled, jeered, and mocked every European move, making it feel less like a golf tournament and more like a WWE main event. Team Europe, however, didn't exactly shrink under the spotlight. If anything, they thrived on it. Fleetwood and Rose leaned into the boos, hitting clutch shots and smirking their way through the noise, as if to say, "Is that all you've got?" Bryson's tension with Rose might have been sparked by a caddy's misstep, but the crowd pressure acted like gasoline on the fire. The Europeans knew every missed American putt would send the Long Island faithful into a frenzy, and they were more than happy to fuel it. By the time the dust settled, Europe had a commanding 11.5 to 4.5 lead heading into the final day. The fans had thrown everything at them, and instead of crumbling, Europe weaponized the hostility. Which leaves us with one burning question. Did Bryson's frustration really come from Rose's words, or from watching Team USA unravel in front of its own crowd? If the crowd was loud, the players were louder. What started as a quick reprimand morphed into a verbal shootout that echoed across Bethpage Black. Bryson, famous for his power drives and even more powerful opinions, refused to let Justin Rose's tone slide. Rose, equally stubborn, wasn't backing down. Enter Tommy Fleetwood, who decided the moment needed his trademark intensity, and suddenly this wasn't one argument, it was three at once. Add in Molinari chirping at Ted Scott, and you had a chorus of accusations bouncing between fairway and gallery. It felt less like a Ryder Cup pairing and more like a courtroom drama with no judge, no gavel, just pure chaos. Each man was convinced the other side had crossed a line, each caddy convinced they were defending sacred ground. The irony? Both Rose and Bryson ended up making par on that hole, their actual golf overshadowed by the bickering. When the press later asked Rose if things got heated, he tried to spin it as intense but respectful. Respectful? Sure. If raising your voice, pointing fingers, and drawing in half the support staff counts as polite discourse. The truth was clear. Words were weaponized, and nobody walked away clean. If you were in that New York crowd, would you be booing Europe or backing the chaos? Let me know below, and hit subscribe, because we've got more rivalries exploding off the fairway than on it.
They got to a point where they had to wait on the tee. There was apologies exchanged. Just the overall drama. It felt like it was a storyline today. It was a shame that that match had to end that way. But I think a little bit of it too was just overall frustration.
When U.S. Captain Keegan Bradley spoke afterward, his words hinted at something deeper. I think it was a little bit disrespectful, he admitted, though he tried to smooth things over by pointing out Rose had already apologized. But the damage was done. Once the respect card gets played, it sticks. In golf, where etiquette and sportsmanship are almost as sacred as the game itself, to question respect is to question character. Bryson's decision to defend Bodine wasn't just about loyalty, it was about drawing a line in the sand. You don't talk to my guy that way. Europe, on the other hand, saw Rose's snap as nothing more than in-the-moment intensity. Molinari even laughed it off later, saying it was part of the Ryder Cup's fire. But fans weren't laughing. Social media erupted with slow-motion replays, exaggerated transcripts of the shouting match, and enough hot takes to make this dust-up bigger than the golf itself. Respect wasn't just questioned, it was trending. And when respect becomes a headline, the original shot, the putt, the score, all of it fades. What's left is the feud, immortalized in pixels and sound bites. This was supposed to be Team USA's comeback on home soil, a chance to finally halt Europe's dominance. Instead, the weekend turned into a clinic in dysfunction. By the end of Saturday, Europe had stormed ahead 11.5 to 4.5, leaving the Americans staring down near impossible odds. The feud between Bryson and Rose wasn't just a sideshow, it became the symbol of everything wrong with Team USA's campaign. Frustration, ego, infighting, and a crowd that couldn't rattle Europe the way they hoped. Meanwhile, the Europeans relished every ounce of drama, turning jeers into motivation and arguments into momentum. Rose's no malintent comment may have closed the book officially, but Bryson's lingering scowl told a different story. The Ryder Cup wasn't just about golf anymore, it was about rivalries, grudges, and the fracture lines drawn between two continents. Whether or not Team USA mounted any kind of miracle, the image that will endure isn't a putt dropping or a trophy lifted. It's the sight of players and caddies squaring up, hurling words sharper than 9 irons, as the Ryder Cup spirit cracked wide open. This wasn't just golf, it was theater, and the feud might just outlast the tournament. Do you think Bryson and Team USA can ever recover from this? Sound off in the comments. And stick with us, because the next chapter is coming fast.